So we're finally getting a new Dino TLC in ARK, and seeing that we haven't had one for at least 5 years, this is quite a momentous occasion. Whilst yes, we've had a lot of mini Dino TLCs over the years, the original Phase 1, Phase 2 and Phase 3 visual and ability upgrades we saw to the classic creatures in ARK, well, we haven't really seen anything like that since. And well, Wildcard have decided this Extra Life charity stream this year, you're going to be donating to pitch for the best Dino TLCs out there. And so I thought I'd make a ranked tier list, go through all of the original classic island dinos to see which really deserve that TLC upgrade. So that of course excludes later map additions, looking specifically at those original creatures that have been in ARK for, well, almost 10 years. You know what to do, hit that like button and let's get into it. With 5 options for each of these creatures, perfection if they really don't need any change at all. Perfection. Better if you're kind of agreeable, they do the job, they look the part, and maybe they could have a little look in, but not really much at all.
I mean, it's alright, like.
Fugly if they just simply need a visual upgrade.
Okay.
Pimp this, because, you know, it's okay, it's alright, but it really does need something to spruce it up and make it a creature you definitely want to tame now.
Let's pimp this math boy's rhyme.
And useless, the accolade awarded to the creatures you never tame in ARK, the ones that I think surely would need a TLC upgrade more than most. So, picking at random, we're going to kick off with the Ichthyosaurus, a dolphin. You use it, you tame it. It's certainly a go-to creature when you want to get into the sea pretty quickly. A very easy passive tame at that. And in fact, a really quick thing in the sea. You can shoot from it. It's okay. It's never going to be something you continuously use in ARK. It's always attracted to you, never leaves you alone. But does it need a TLC? I don't know. I kind of like where it is in ARK, where it is in the food chain. Could it do, though, with a visual upgrade? Possibly. Visually, it doesn't feel too far misrepresented from what we believe a Ichthyosaurus looks like. But is it perfection? Possibly. I think I'm quite happy with where this sits in ARK. I think we've got a creature that doesn't really need a look in. It serves its purpose. It's not something you go to for everything, but nor should you, because of where it sits in the running to tame other creatures, right? It's an early game creature. There it sits. I think it sits there well. Ah, a perfect choice. One that definitely, in my opinion, is a creature that needs an upgrade more than most. This one is right up there as something that has no point in ARK to tame anymore. Titanoboa used to be something you had to tame to make a specific type of kibble in ARK, but with the kibble tier upgrade that we had some years ago, there's just no reason to get one anymore. There is no reason. You can't make these things. They're a pain to tame. There's really nowhere to keep them housed within your base. And yeah, okay, they deal some torpor to players, but when are you really going to use them? Be honest to yourself. When? You're not. But what does it need? Everything. It needs a visual overhaul. It just looks like a big puppy dog with perhaps a pitched ability, such as being able to extract venom from these creatures. Perhaps some other segue to create narcotics. Definitely get these things breedable. And perhaps the ability to put these things in turret mode to inflict some decent ranged torpor damage as a new option to double up on turrets. A definite requirement, in my opinion, one creature that needs a upgrade more than most. Next up, we've got the Dire Bear. I mean, it's a good, solid, round creature. He actually got a TLC. If you didn't know, it was one of the creatures that got that TLC upgrade. And as a result, does it need anything? I don't think so. I think it is really a perfection creature. It's got a good melee. It's a great creature, a great go-to early game creature with its honey gathering abilities, its abilities to speed run. It's a fearful thing to run into in ARK. No complaints. Dire Bear is a great creature. Doesn't need a change in my opinion. Next up, Dodicarus, a creature that got, I guess, a mini TLC quite recently, with you being able to specifically just harvest stone. But does it need an upgrade? Does it need a TLC? Of course, it does what it does in ARK. It's a go-to creature. You all still tame these, because if you don't tame these, then stone gathering is a bit of a pain otherwise, unless maybe you got a donkey. But I'm going to say visually this could do with perhaps a bit of an overlook. I'm not sure what you could really do with this, but I just feel like the head's a bit too cartoonish looking. In fact, the entirety of it, give that shell the hardened, bumpy look it deserves, with one slight caveat which wants me to move this just to pimp this, but when it's at low health and it goes into its hibernate status, nothing's able to aggro on it, and it doesn't feel like it helps with anything in this stance. Yes, I know it takes reduced damage as a result, but nobody seems to use that feature for anything at all. It simply just ends up resulting in wild dodes all at minimal health, bouncing between that, coming in and out of their shell when you wander into them in the wild. I don't know, I'd be inclined to look at that mechanic there and see if there was something we could approach to make that react a bit differently. Megaloceros, a creature a few people out there use. It's definitely got some advantages. It can be a great moving around creature. It can get around maps more quicker than you think. In fact, we used to use this quite often in Sotif matches more than anything. There's a lot of people out there that like their deers and like to use this, and in fact is a great thatch gatherer and a dragon cheeser. Let's not forget what that does there. But does it need TLC? Well, maybe, because there's male and female counterparts with this, and the female, well, frankly, does nothing apart from being a breeder. Could we see the breeder being used for something more? Maybe the ability to milk them, seeing that bisons have an ability now to be milked and iguanas have got some milk-like capabilities there. Could we use perhaps the female for something milk-related too? You know, like my milk. And the male deer, perhaps some additional damage infliction from its antlers. Perhaps a bleed, dare I say. But admittedly, people do use these. They don't overlook these creatures at all. They've got their moments to shine. But I was torn between Pimp Dis and Bet. But considering the female is absolutely useless, I think it completely deserves a Pimp Dis, and definitely looking at that female model in particular. Let's see a bit of love to the deer. The iconic flagship dodo, does it really need a nerf at all? I think it is perfection. The dodo is what the dodo does. It wanders around the beaches. It's one of your first encounters in Ark. It can guarantee you some early game kibble unless you're quickly progressing way past that. It's a great source for hide early on. It's a dodo. It does what a dodo does. It's not meant to be a monster. It's is what it is. You're taming them because it is simply just a dodo. Though, could it do with maybe a visual upgrade? Is it a bit fugly nowadays? I think maybe it's time for the dodo to get that love it truly deserves. It is the flagship ARK creature. Maybe it deserves the flagship look. Yeah, it looks like a model that was made 10 years ago. The thing needs a bit of love. A bit of love. Let's maybe breathe a bit of life into this fugly creature, though. It's going to be definitely a jarring one to move across because we all know what this thing looks like, but perhaps it needs one, right? Next up, we got Hyenodons, which is a creature I've come to love more than I used to. I thought this was definitely something I would never tame, and to be honest, do you really tame Hyenodons? They don't really serve too much of a purpose in Ark. I think they're very niche. It's been working well for us because of the type of playthrough we've been having where we can't use fridges, and in fact this being a mobile organic fridge is a great compensator for that. But let's be honest, once you got a fridge, you're never going to use these for that capability. Yes, they've got a pack buff on top. Yes, they do some great damage and they heal really, really well and do harvest meat really well. But the fact is, on meat runs, you're just not going to send a pack out of these to do that. Visually, they don't look too bad. Maybe could do with a bit of a touch up. But I think if we were going to do anything with a Hyenodon, maybe the ability to ride one. Maybe the ability to ride the pack leader at the very most. Something just about giving this some reason to tame. If it's going to be in Ark, I guess it at least serves as sheer annoyance when you're out in the wild and these things come along to ruin your tames. But if we want to tame them, then give us a reason to tame them and ride about on a big dog. I'd like to see that. Let's throw it in Pimp Dis. Pulling up the Megatherium now. I mean, come on. Megatherium is what a Megatherium does. It's a monster. The absolute bug killer of the world. This thing clears caves like no tomorrow. This thing clears Broodmother like no tomorrow. It's the go-to choice. It's the GOAT when it comes to doing spiders. Could it do with a bit of a visual upgrade though? Maybe. Maybe. There's definitely worse looking creatures in Ark, and it's a great all-around creature to use, right? There's really no complaints when it comes to a Megatherium. It's the chitin farmer that you use. It's the chitin farmer that you choose. Is it perfection though? I'm gonna say it is. Let's drop it there. Bug buff all round. Let's have it there. Happy days. Eels. Who tames an eel? Put your hands up out there if anybody out there has ever tamed an eel. Anyone at all? No. Why? Why would you? There's no point to. Like, they're just an annoyance to run into the sea. Very much, again, like the Titanoboa. It seems we've got a bit of a pattern emerging here with long, slithery things. Passively tamed with biotoxin. You're just never going to use these things. I guess, like, if you want to have an eel-filled water pool. But really, it's such a niche thing. Not nobody tames these for nothing. We need a purpose. We need a reason to tame eels. Visually, they need an upgrade. They look awful. They definitely need an improvement more than most. And I think a tamed eel definitely needs a bit more strength to it. It's just too squishy to be worth anything in the waters once tamed. And you know what? Why not? There's so many sea bases out there today. Why not have a sea turret mode creature like this? Just like the Titanoboa, something that exists in turret mode that perhaps is able to shoot shocking balls of electricity from a short range, being able to stun things in place. Maybe a bit like a Tesla, but not exactly like a Tesla because we've already got a Tesla. What's the point in doubling up on the Tesla? But either way, give us a reason to tame an eel. If it's a tameable creature, make it a tameable creature for a reason, right? I don't feel like it is, and I don't feel like it has that purpose right now in ARK. Up now is the Diplocaulus, which I know many of you out there are probably going to say, well, it definitely needs an upgrade, but it's got its place in ARK. Frankly, it's a really rapid sea creature. It's a great black pearl harvester, more than you'd realize. In fact, it is a great choice to speed run the Cunning Cave on the island more than most sea creatures, though with the Helicoprion being in the game now, I don't know, that's definitely going to change the game. Its ability to give you oxygen early on is great, though a lot of people do blast past this and go straight to scuba without the requirement to get that, and that's why it gets probably overlooked more than most creatures. I think it could do with like a little pimp. Give me a little pimp on the Diplo. You know what it does need? A visual upgrade. This thing is the fuggliest of fuggliest creatures in ARK. Look at that head, look at it straight, and tell me that something is definitely wrong with this picture. It is the face only a mother could love. This one, it's a little bit of work. It again looks like it was made 10 years ago. I'm sure we can do some visual work, some visual treats with a Diplocaulus. Let's see in the fugly slot. Let's go right there, right here, right now. Followed up by a mammoth, which, come on, has its place. Again, a creature that had its own TLC way back when, with now the ability to harvest a chunk of wood, and definitely looks way better than the original creature that was brought to ARK in the first place. And let's be honest, it is your go-to wood gatherer. It is a great creature when it comes to some boss fights, dragon in particular. It recently got a buff. It's a great creature all around. I know you like to play the drums on these things. It's got a bit of an ally buff there when you do play the drums on these. It can grab, it can do a range of different attacks. It's great in a pack. It's great with friends. It is a all around perfect creature to tame. I've got no complaints when it comes to a mammoth. Perfection. Absolute perfection. Megalosaurus. Now this is an interesting one because for me personally, I feel like it definitely needs a buff. Yes, it's got some great attacks when it's nighttime, and that's the problem when it's nighttime. Who really uses these on any other map apart from Aberration? I feel like we're missing somewhat of a trick when it comes to the Megalosaurus. It needs some reason to use during the day. Right now, it simply doesn't. Whilst its abilities are great, the ability to pick up anything and everything in its mouth, and the sheer volume of damage it does at night are great, it needs a reason to be used in the day. Because who wants to travel at night? You don't. I think we need to see that sleep debt nerfed considerably, allow at least more time to be used in the day before it has to go to sleepy time. And then maybe we'll see more uses to this thing. Visually, it doesn't look too bad actually in ASA. It's a mean encounter when you run into one in caves. And you know, possibly the ability to see at the dead of night, some night vision whilst you're riding one of these, considering it's meant to be a nocturnal creature. Wouldn't that be a cool little thing to drop on top? Another reason to use one to scope out what's in front of you in night vision mode. Not completely useless, definitely a pimp diss in my opinion. I'd like to see some improvements on the Megalosaurus. Let's throw it in there. Giant bees do what they do, right? They make you honey. That's literally all that they do. You tame them to put them into beehives, to turn them into beehives, and then they make you honey. That is literally what they do. they serve that purpose? Do they really need to serve any other purpose? I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think that's what you need them for in ARK. You tame them, you turn them into beehives. Job's a good one. Honey on production, perfection. No complaints. Casteroids is definitely a creature that maybe needs a bit of love. Was once a go-to creature, but then has since been overlooked with other creatures. I think maybe when the mammoth got brought into play, this used to be a great wood gatherer and still kind of is, but the mammoth trumps this by far. That it needs some balance to be a go-to creature that you want over most. Visually, I think it might need a bit of attention, most definitely. And abilities wise, I think there's one very obvious one. If these things create beaver dams, let's see the potential of some way of it being able to make perhaps really nerfed beaver dams in your base to generate, of course, wood and paste, as well as rare flowers, rare mushrooms, and silica pearls. Obviously need to be a bit careful there with the Achatina meant to be the paste producer in ARK. Maybe those resources apart from paste, or maybe simply just a better wood production for it to counter the mammoth once again, because yeah, since the TLC and that one, who tames these for much? You don't really, do you? Pimp this one. Capro, a great creature when it comes to pouncing out of a swamp and tearing your face off. You will see these before you tame these in the swamp, I'm very, very sure. Gotta say though, they do look a bit old hat now. They definitely need some form of a visual upgrade. Abilities wise, do they need an improvement? I think they serve what they do. PvPers love to use these to troll people. They definitely troll pretty well in the wild alone. I think they just about serve their purpose in the food chain. It's not really a go-to tame in my opinion, not for me at the very least, but I definitely feel like a few people out there do go for these for a few things, but I think it might get overlooked as you level past it pretty quickly. Torn between Pimp This and Fugly, but I'm gonna go, let's see just simply a visual upgrade with the Capro, so throw it in there. Galley. Who likes a galley? It has its moments in ARK. Obviously there's one person in ARK that definitely loves galleys. We're all looking at you, mate. But besides it being a rapid creature, which it is, it's an insanely quick creature to get around on. It's a bit of a pain in the arse to tame. Frankly, it's too much of a pain to tame to be bothered with. I think visually they definitely need an overhaul, perhaps a better turning radius with these creatures. They're just too bloody quick running in one direction. Perhaps the ability to just navigate a bit more to the left and the right could be useful, giving these a bit more reason to tame over most. And on that subject, taming, I think we need to nerf its ability to be killed so quickly. Perhaps not lore accurate, but maybe higher torpor to make it a harder tame if you're going to go down that road for this. But the fact is, you can't really tame these until you've got a long neck, and by that point, you've got much better creatures to tame out there, and you've blasted past this thing, and you've missed it. You missed the opportunity to use a galley, so it definitely needs a bit of a touch up there. Maybe some way of the crossbow trank darts to be nerfed when shooting at a galley. I'm going to throw this in Pimp This there, right there. There we go. Next up, a racer. And well, racers are great. I mean, they've got platform saddles on them, and you can build on those platform saddles, and they're used very well in PvP moments specifically. I know PvE, perhaps not so much, but they're great tanky tanks. They've got large pools of health. I guess visually they could do with a bit of work, because, you know, all of those phallic jokes are always popping out around ARK, and they are definitely starting to look a bit old hat, a bit tired. But in PvP, they are a choice tame. People still use these for a lot of reasons when it comes to pushing turrets. Can't complain really too much when it comes to a racer, but yeah, give it a touch up, give it a glow up. Let's throw it there. Throw it in Alfred now, the Lystro, which it's a go-to. You put these things in your base, you keep pressing the button, and it passively gives XP to all of your creatures. So, you know, it's got a reason to be tamed in ARK. It's a pretty simple, straightforward tame. Again, though, it really does need a visual upgrade. It looks bloody awful. It's definitely looking tired, worn, and deserves a bit of an overhaul. But abilities-wise, it doesn't really need much improvement. I think it serves the purpose that it needs to serve. So into Fugly it goes. Next up, we've got the Dilo, and this is a creature I think deserves one TLC in particular. I think, in fact, it's on the verge of useless. You do tame these, people do tame these, but just because that's something quick and easy to tame starting out. After that, then you're done with them. You never use a Dilo once again. Yes, they've got a turret mode, but do you use that? No, you don't. Visually, they could do with a bit more work, and I think abilities-wise, there's a very obvious answer with these, and it's the ability to ride one. Make these just a bit bigger and allow us to jump on the back of one to use these to spit at stuff and inflict torpor early on. I like that idea. I like the reason to use these as perhaps some way of dealing torpor early to mid-game. Obviously, would need some balancing against going to bows and crossbows, but that's where it serves its purpose. That's where it serves as that creature, as a go-to creature early on to use to knock out other creatures early on and work your way up through the ranks by riding one. Let's see some work on that. Let's turn this into a useful creature, because frankly it just ain't really useful at all. Daedon. A Daedon does what a Daedon does. It heals you very well. I've got no complaints when it comes to a Daedon. It serves its purpose. Is it being overlooked now with stuff like the Drakeling and the Veilwind, the Snow Owl? Probably, yeah, more than most, but it is the one and only that you're going to bring into boss fights to get that additional bit of healing. People still swear by them when it comes to boss fights. It's definitely got its place in ARK. Visually, it's not too bad. I'm not too disgruntled with how it looks. I think it's perfection when it comes to the Daedon in ARK. Followed up with the RG, and yeah, come on, there's like no reason to buff this any more than it already is. It is a choice creature for everybody out there, especially on PvE. Since this TLC upgrade it got, despite the speed nerf it got before then, it's the all-rounder for everything. A great fighter, a great tank, a great harvester, a great carrier carrying up to 2 creatures at once, of course doubling with an Anki for those metal farms, and it's built-in smithy. It's the all-round, it's the go-to, it's the GOAT when it comes to flyers. Frankly, it doesn't need any more work than it is. Surprisingly, we haven't had anything for Bet yet. Maybe this is the one. And you know what? No, it's not. The Dunkleo is a great creature in ARK. I didn't think it was until like really recently. I know a lot of people have sworn by these for many years, and it's surprising how slow that news has worked its way around the community, but I now swear by these when it comes to metal and stone farming, especially on Australia. This thing is a monster for harvesting. It doesn't need a nerf, it doesn't need a buff, it doesn't look too bad. It's a nightmare to tame. It's definitely where it belongs in ARK in my place. Very happy with Dunkleos. Doesn't need any changes to that. Kentros. Hey, we've got a bet. In my opinion, this is a bet because, yeah, it's a creature that perhaps you do tame, perhaps you go to tame, and it has its moments. Its ability to pick up creatures and get them stuck on its tail is a very useful feature. Indeed, its ability to reflect damage has its moments. It used to be a go-to choice to enrage gigas, not nearly so much anymore, and I think that's where it lies. It needs some improvement there. Its deflect damage just doesn't feel quite enough. But looking at the paleo models in particular, which I know is going to be a subject on TLC, if you don't know, the paleo models will never see in ARK. That was a choice by the team. They didn't want to see the paleo models being brought into the dev kit for anybody to use for their own mods or whatever. But the paleo Kentro offers a great reason to why Kentros need a buff. You can ride Kentros with the paleo mod, and riding one with the abilities stacked on top, of course having a saddle with that as well, makes this a definite go-to choice over the Kentro as it is right now. But still, you know, a creature people still use for things, but I can see some great TLC being put into a Kentro, so we're placing it there. We're going to prop it in bet. ARK Dino is a creature you tame. You know you do. You need these. If you want to generate paste on the go, then this is what you tame them for. But is it now still the go-to for everyone? Because farming paste is a lot easier than it used to be back in the day. All you could do is go and farm beaver dams, and that would take as long as it would take beaver dams to spawn, and that's why you tamed ARK Dinos. But nowadays you've got places you can go and harvest paste in the bucket load. Does it need a bit of work there? Maybe. Still, it has its place. People still tame these. People tame these en masse, especially when coupled with gachas. It's a great way to passively generate paste in the bucket load. If you've got the right setup, you'll definitely have these in your base. And for that fact alone, no complaints. ARK Dino works pretty well. Compy, useless, absolutely useless. Nobody tames a compy for nothing. Yeah, it's a shoulder pet. Yeah, it offers that 50% weight reduction, but you will never see anybody with a compy on their back for nothing because there's no reason to tame one. There's just not. There's way better shoulder pets in ARK. They just serve as sheer annoyance on the beaches. And I guess, you know, some creatures, perhaps that's all they need to do in ARK, but it's a tameable creature. And if it's a tameable creature, give us a reason to tame the thing. What abilities would a compy offer that would be worthwhile for you? What could a compy possibly do? Apart from needing some visual work, just look closely at one and you'll know why. Perhaps the ability to attach itself and cling on to players or creatures, a bit like a leech, but only from a tameable perspective, that you're able to throw it at players for it to slowly drain their health over time. But of course they can counter that by possibly being burnt or some other reason, or maybe chop it off with a sword. Think back to that Jurassic Park 2 opening with all the compies going wild on people. What about that? Compies running around bodies as you throw them on. Like a cat. Cat does that, right? Cat gets launched in your face. Maybe a compy could do something similar to the cat, but from a different perspective. It's running around your body instead of on your face, and you've got to do a different thing to shake it off. Give a reason for the compy to be tamed like that. That will be the one right there. Give it even more annoyance. Give it as much of an annoyance tamed as it is wild. Arthropleura! I mean, you know, it's definitely a base destroyer. It's the destroyer of worlds. It's the destroyer of armor in particular. And on PvP, yeah, it's a go-to. It's a great base clean-up job. It's a free clean-up job when you've got nothing else. PvE though, you've got no reason to tame these. Absolutely none. Zilch. So there's a balance required there. It serves its purpose. It's an annoyance to encounter in caves, but it needs some reason to be tamed in PvE. Mobility wise, whilst it's great in the sea, it's pretty quick in the sea actually. On land it's incredibly slow, but the fact is it does deal an incredible amount of damage to structures, so it does need to be slow as a result. Perhaps we could see something with its spit attack being used in PvE, able to inflict some sort of corrosive damage. Perhaps the ability to inflict a passive armor debuff, so then whatever damage you deal during that debuff attack is bypassing saddle damage. Could that be a possibility there as a cool PvE option? Maybe. But then again, I just said saddle damage, and you don't fight creatures with saddles in ARK. I don't know, I'm a bit torn on this one. I feel like it needs something for PvE, because there's just no reason to be tamed for it for any other reason but destroying bases. Maybe that's what it needs. I'd love to hear in the comments if you wanted to see an Arthro improved in PvE, what would it be? The Leopleurodon is an absolute must to be buffed now. It was already a pretty useless creature. It is even more now a useless creature because of the Drakeling. Its only purpose serving as a temporary buff given to your players to buff drops that you give access, re-rolling any drop to potentially give you better loot. But now the Drakeling does that. There's literally no reason to tame a Leopleurodon anymore in ARK. It needs something. What does it need? Of course, a visual upgrade. Without a doubt, this one is one of the fuggliest creatures in ARK. But something the Kraken's Better Dinos did very well with the Leopleurodon was the ability for it to craft a buffing potion, that instead of you having to ride the thing to get this temporary buff, you actually were able to tame these things, and from that would craft a buffing potion within its inventory. I can't remember exactly what the resources required were for that, but let's make that pretty top end. But something that allows you to drink temporarily to buff drops. But then again, with Drakelings in, and probably most people using Drakelings, is that enough? I'm not too sure. Either way though, Leopleurodon definitely needs at least that to make it a worthwhile tame now. Just checking Kraken's Better Dinos, and in fact is a great source of reference with some TLC ideas, and Leopleurodon does, in that one, does offer a healing ability on top, does what a Daedon does but in the water. Perhaps that could be an option with this too. Let's throw in a healer in the sea. Yes, there are some tanky creatures, looking at Tuzos in particular in the sea, but now with the Helicoprion in the sea to counter Tuzos, maybe we do need to see a healer in the sea. And see what we can see with a Leopleurodon being that healing option. Kairuku is a creature you farm for organic poly. It's a creature you might breed to farm even more organic poly. It does incubate, but that's about it. There's not really much more than that, but it does serve its purpose in ARK. It's a creature you do tame to mass farm poly. I know they're pretty small, but I think the ability to ride these would be pretty fun. I think why not? The ability to dive in and out of the water, having a land to sea creature that's still relatively easy to kill, but at least something that goes from land to sea like this that you could jump on could be a choice idea, right? We've seen this quite recently in the Eden map, and I quite enjoyed it with that. Why not? Why not give it just that little bit more purpose in ARK? But you do tame these for things, so we're going to put it in bet. Megalania, a creature that I think needs definitely some work. Of course, it serves its purpose as a Megalania toxin farmer, like just giving you it. If you've got a breeding pair, you can pop out babies and you get all the Megalania toxin that you need. But frankly, it's just not a great fighter. Yes, it has some great abilities to climb walls, and I think at least for that, some people might use them, but there's other wall climbers out there. PvE, I doubt you use these for anything. Probably definitely go for rock drakes instead, but its melee is atrocious. Yes, it inflicts its poisonous dealing damage, but it really doesn't inflict enough damage. I think it needs a bit more work there. Visually, it's not too bad, but yeah, I think it could do with a bit more of a buff. Let's throw that in bet. Procoptodon, a creature that we would use more often in ARK if there were no flyers, because it is a great traveling mount, and people do use these every now and then. They used to be great optional creatures when it came to breeding, offering a bit more improved affinity with certain creatures, though I don't feel like that gets used as often anymore with everything that's been added to ARK since that ability was brought into. But it did get a TLC, and that was the TLC. Its breeding capabilities. It is a great moving around creature. It is a great thing to kick on the move. It is a great thing to offer insulation for you in its pouch if you're really desperate for some insulation. But does it need a buff? I don't know, man. You know what? No, I'm going to say no. I think I'm happy with it in ARK. I don't think it needs any more work. It's a go-to if I can't get a flyer, but I frankly normally get flyers before I've tamed this. And that's the problem, isn't it? But if I couldn't use flyers, I'd be using this. So it's perfection. Plesio. Plesio without neck. It's, for me, not a creature I use for nothing. There are plenty of players out there that love these. I personally don't. I think it's just a waste. Like when there's a Moza with a platform saddle as well, why would I bother going for the Plesio? I know it's got a bit more speed over the Moza, and its platform saddle, I believe, is a bit more stable than a Moza, but with a Moza having way more tankier health and way more damage output than a Plesio, why on earth would I tame a Plesio? And I do wonder how many people out there think the same, but I know people do tame these things. Visually though, oh my god, it needs some work. That face is one of the worst in ARK. It really does need to stop looking like Pac-Man. When the hell are we going to move on from that face? So at the very least, it's fugly. Is it a deserving of pimp this? Well, I guess, you know, it's my grandkids, so I'm going to say yes. I want an additional purpose to tame one of these. And what does it need? Something to make it a worthwhile creature for me in ARK. I just don't go for these for nothing at all. Maybe the ability to move better in the sea. Maybe a saddle. I don't know what this needs. I feel like it needs something. I just don't go for these for nothing. I feel like they're an unnecessary creature for me. I get a feeling you're going to be arguing against this one in the chat. I need more from a Plesio to want to tame a Plesio, and I'd like to hear what you think is worth or giving me a reason to tame a Plesio. Right, throwing it there. Direwolves. Direwolves are great. Direwolves are strong, monstrous creatures if you can use them effectively with their pack buff. Of course, they've got the ability to search for dossiers, which is great on top, but they're just a bit too squishy. They are a creature you're going to use for anything but searching for dossiers. Impacts, you'll maybe have a crack at some areas, but there's definitely a lot of places that wolves will not be any good for. And maybe that's the point of creatures in ARK. Maybe, you know, you're meant to go and get other creatures, but because of that, you tend to default to other creatures in ARK as a result. So I feel like it needs something just a little bit more zest to make them a worthy creature. Could we contemplate the idea of saddles for direwolves? Would it make them a bit too OP? Maybe. I think there might be some balancing required there, but could just simply the introduction of saddles make these a creature you tame over others? Maybe. I'm going to put it in bet. Monkey see, monkey do. I love a Mesopithecus because they throw poo-poo. And they're great for that. It's definitely an underrated ability. The ability to slow any creature down with poop thrown from a meso on your back. And it's something I definitely go to tame quite often, more than most in early playthroughs. But I do quickly overlook it after playing for a short while. Maybe it serves its ranking in the food chain for that alone. But we all have got to agree its face needs some work, dude. That face is something else. What the hell is going on? Kill it with fire. Mesopithecus desperately needs a facelift over most creatures in ARK. I think its ability to unlock doors needs to be looked at. I don't even think this is TLC. I just think it needs to unlock doors properly. I don't think it does that anymore. It used to. I don't think it's double doors it unlocks anymore. Could we expand on that ability for it to unlock doors? Can it unlock any door possible from behind, including gates? That's what needs to happen with these. I think originally when they were brought in, it was just for singular doors, and I don't think that's been improved on since. Let's just allow it to open any door from the inside out, if that's even possible with how doors work now in ARK. Maybe that's the reason why, but I'd like to look at that. Either way, fugly is its main problem. So looking at this one quite early, the Mosasaur. I mean, it's a tank. It's an absolute monster in the sea. It's got a platform saddle, so you've got some uses there. It's a great go-to creature. Maybe could do with a bit of a overlook. It is starting to look a bit old, 10 years old at that. But it's frankly a monster in the sea to use. A giant health pool, a giant amount of melee. Honestly, though, I'd go for a Tuzo and now a Helicoprion over this, but it's still, frankly, a monster in the sea, once dubbed the Giga of the ocean. But is it really anymore? Nevertheless, I'm going to throw it in perfection and leave it there for now. Equus, another one. I gotta say, this is perfection. I really love an Equus. I think it's a great early game creature, giving you the ability to work as a mortar and pestle early on, and its knockout capabilities are second to none. There isn't much more that can knock out things quicker than this, and Equus is a monster for that. It's a great creature to tame. You all love how they look. There's no complaints with an Equus. It really is simply perfection in it goes. I think another one that doesn't need too much work. I think it's a solid all-around creature. It does some great damage. It's not really a monstrous creature. It's not something you use later on in the game, but it definitely deals a lot of damage, and it has that bleed damage. But there's one particular feature that we found with the paleo version of this that we thoroughly enjoyed, and you know what? I think that needs to be addressed and looked at. The ability for this thing to sprint fast, super fast, work a bit like a dire bear, that the quicker you run, the longer you run, the quicker this thing goes. It's really fun to see this thing in action, running like that, and I think this would give this a real reason to be tamed over other creatures, and maybe does need a bit of a visual upgrade, but not too much. It's not terrible, but definitely needs some improvement, so I'm gonna throw it in bet. Excuse me, sir. I would like one of your precious artifacts. Mr. Otter does that. It's the only creature in ARK that has the ability to hold artifacts, therefore has its purpose in ARK, overlooking the fact this incubation is monstrous, and it's definitely a great creature if you're venturing to anywhere super, super cold and keeping you from dying to that fortitude. But the Drakeling, the Spring Drakeling is in the game now, and frankly that overlooks the fortitude capabilities of Otters now, with the Spring Drakeling offering you that health regeneration. It does still have its artifact carrying ability, so it does still have that edge, but the Spring Drakeling does trump it in that regard now. It's not a go-to creature anymore, but it does still serve a purpose. I guess it does still offer itself up as an air conditioner if you can't make air conditioners just yet, so it just about feels still imperfection, though that Drakeling really is making this take a little bit of a hit. Anglerfish farm silica pearls en masse. There is no other creature that does it better than an anglerfish. And of course, on other maps can farm black pearls en masse as well. Nah, no real complaints. I think it serves that purpose. It's the pearl farmer. It's the go-to when it comes to pearls. But visually, I'd like a bit of work done to this. I don't know. I feel like it could look a lot meaner than it does right now. It kind of looks a bit too cartoonish now. It's looking a bit old. Maybe we could do with seeing a bit more work to the angler as a result. I'm going to throw it there. Fugly. It is fugly, right? You agree, right? Palovia. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think this is almost on the verge of being useless. Yes, it has its ability to be used as a hidden storage, hidden vault for anywhere and everywhere. The ability to snare players if they get too close. But do you really use these for any of that? I bet you don't really, do you? I bet you don't. And there's one big reason, one thing, one improvement to this that's so obvious that Wildcard themselves added it to the cartoon, to the anime, that these things can be written. So it's lore accurate that you can write Palovias. Why can't you write these in ARK? It's the obvious answer, as well as needing maybe a visual upgrade on top. Let us write Palovias, useless, and put it there. Mantas, they're right. I've never really used them much in ARK until quite very recently. A lot of people out there do use these, but I don't know, like, they're too much of a pain to tame, especially seeing that you need to go deeper than them to get the resource required to tame these things, to then being able to use these to get in the sea, being passive tames. And whilst, yeah, they've got some speed in the sea, I don't know whether that's enough for these things. You can't shoot from them. Yeah, you can hop out the water, but what's that going to do? You could do a little kickflip in the air while you're bombing it around the ocean. But for what else? The only reason I think this thing personally serves is being a mission creature to do missions in, to do race missions with, Wave Racer, right? But I do feel like I'm talking about this one with a bit of bias, so seeing that a lot of you are going to disagree and say, yeah, you use them, you tame them, I'm going to just put it in bet. I'd probably put it in Pimp Disc, but I'm going to throw it in bet that, yeah, all right, it's all right. I'm torn. Go on, we'll put it in bet. Iguanodon, great creature, great early game creature. It's something that loses no stamina wherever you go. It's a berry to seed farmer, allowing you to turn anything you want into seeds at a whim. And it's a great biotoxin farmer on Aberration, if you didn't know that one by now. A great early creature tame to get in ARK, to be honest. I've got no complaints with an Iguanodon. It looks okay. It doesn't look too bad. I think it's a great starter tame. I think it's perfection. Big fan of Iguanodons. Throw it in. But something that's very much the opposite of perfection that needs TLC is definitely a Dimetrodon. This creature, once upon a time, was a required creature. It was something that was a painful tame way back when, because you had to, again, tame that for a certain kibble to tame other creatures in the original base game ARK. Now, since changed with the kibble tier system upgrade, and whilst, yeah, they do offer an air conditioner replacement, do you really tame these? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I think you need more reason to tame these. I think they need a visual upgrade, most definitely. And Kraken's Better Dinos offers a great idea, a super heat buff that gives the affected creature a 25% extra speed and damage reduction. Manually activated to boost the Dimetrodon's hypothermic insulation at the cost of its health, also giving buffs to other swamp creatures as well. And I know there's some issues with that giant fin on its back, but maybe the ability to ride one couldn't go amiss. We did it with the moss chaps. Why not do it with the Dimetrodon? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great starter tame. It serves its purpose as, in fact, one of the best starter tames. If you've got the patience to sit and berry farm one of these for a millennia, you've got something that can gather berries really quickly, that can grant you large eggs for a bunch of different stuff, can also move pretty quickly, and has a giant amount of weight for some early resource farming runs. But then after that, once you've gone to other creatures, do you use these anymore? Probably not. But I think it serves its purpose. I quite like a Diplo. Maybe could do with a bit of a visual upgrade. But I don't know. I don't dislike Diplos at all. I think they got their place in ARK. They serve to annoy you by pushing you around all over the shop. I'm going to put it in perfection. Yeah, I know, you might disagree with this one. Basilosaurus. Definitely, everybody loves a Basilosaurus. That's another one that needs no buffs, no improvements. It's a monster in the sea. It tanks really well. If you've seen how quick these things heal when they're near the surface, you will be amazed. They're a go-to for most people when it comes to sea traveling, with its immunity to jellyfish and, of course, to zoos. But I do wonder if the Helicoprion is going to change the meta quite a bit now. Possibly might do, so this might be reflected later on. But for now, you all love them, so it's straight in perfection. In it goes. Megalodon. Megalodon is one I think needs just a visual upgrade. Just a visual upgrade, but not in a fugly way. I just think Megalodons need to be bigger. That's the problem. I think they're monsters, and I've now seen them myself in packs. They can do some monstrous damage, but I just don't feel like they're menacing enough. I just don't feel like they're big enough. And I know that serves a problem, because the idea being, if they're a go-to between bigger creatures like the Mosas, then they can't be too big. But I just don't feel like they're menacing enough. They're already an annoyance, but I want them to be a scarier creature to encounter. They just need to be a bit more accurate to the size that they're meant to be. But it's not really a fugly thing. It's more of a size scale issue. So for that, I'm going to throw it in bet. There we go. Yutyrannus. Yutyrannus is Yutyrannus. It's an absolute must. It's an absolute goat for boss runs and the odd PvP giant dino battle fight. You all tame Uties, you all use Uties. It serves its purpose. It's not a bad looking creature at all in ARK. Maybe it's on the verge of needing a bit of work, but you all love Uties. There's no real reason to change a Utie because of its buffing capabilities. In perfection it goes. Mosschops. I love a Mosschops. I'm a big fan of these. I think these do monstrous damage. I think they're underrated. I think they can do more damage than you really truly believe. And it's an early tame when starting ARK. And of course, all of its resource harvesting abilities on top makes this really a great creature to use in ARK. But not a lot of people use these as effectively as I thought, which is a wonder what needs to be done. Why do we not tame Mosschops as often as we should? Which I'm going to throw this for that reason in bet. I'd probably put this in perfection, but I do feel like not enough people tame Mosschops. So I'd love to know the reason why. Don't forget, of course, it's a great choice for superior kibble early on as well. But I do feel like there's not enough people taming Mosschops in ARK. So let's throw it in bet and see what you say in the comments. The Rex, a thing that also got a TLC update, was one of the original TLC. I think it was the TLC Phase 1 update. Was a creature that definitely needed it way back when, looking like a baby-faced baby. And it's the all-rounder. It's the go-to boss fighter. It's the go-to meat runner, isn't it really, for every other purpose? Or at least it was. Has the meta changed since then? Are we still looking at Rexes with rose-tinted glasses that, frankly, there's better creatures that do individual things better than the Rex? And do we still use the Rexes for anything at all? I feel like still a lot of people do. It's a go-to. I think if you don't know ARK too well, you're always going to want to tame a Rex, and frankly they're great for most things, and I think for that we'll keep it in perfection. But I do wonder if the metas change that much now, if they are really a goated tame anymore. Onyx is definitely one I think is on the verge of useless. It's not completely useless. Yeah, it does its rabid bite attack. Yeah, it can sit down now, but we've got to be able to ride these things, man. That's the problem. I know the Desmodus is going to be coming to Ascended at some point in the future, and that's going to cause a problem with this, but just like, why you're not going to use these? You're not going to want these unless you can ride these, and that's the problem. And Onyx need to be rideable. The Parasaur, another kind of iconic flagship creature, right? Because it's, you know, it's the one in the cartoons with Helena. I think it's a great creature. I think everybody uses these for, of course, its turret mode. It's a go-to starter tame for berry farming. It's definitely one that you might find yourself taming as your first berry creature in ARK, and you'll continue to use one if you need to put it in turret mode for later on. Let's not forget its ability to scare small creatures. There's really no complaints when it comes to the para. In it goes. It's not too fugly, bizarrely. I don't know why. I feel like it maybe is a bit, but no, we're going to keep it in perfection. I'm very happy with Paris. I don't think it needs any work. There we go. But something that definitely needs some work is the Uranio. It's pretty much on the verge of useless. It's a creature that, yeah, you can ride the thing, but you're not gonna. You're not gonna. I guarantee you've got a million Aranio saddles in your vaults right now that you don't use for nothing, or you probably already grinded because you just don't ride these, and that's a fact. And there's a very obvious answer to improve these, and that's its ability to climb walls. Let's see it in the game. I don't know why that isn't already in base game ARK with the Aranios. Another great suggestion on top, I think this was in Kraken's Better Dinos as well, is its spider web to act as some form of a bowler. Instead of its web just simply slowing players or dinos in the spot, let's see it actually freeze players and dinos. Let's see its spider web actually be used for that. Could we go even further and push it into a turret mode? Maybe that's a bit too far, but at the very least, make a spider do what a spider does. It doesn't do that, it doesn't climb anywhere. Okay, it's a bigger spider, I know, but you know what I mean. Come on, let's start climbing walls with Aranios. I think it needs that at the very least. Ovis is what an Ovis is in ARK. It's a mutton granter. It gives you plenty of mutton. It gives you plenty of hide. You tame these to breed en masse for hide farming, don't you? As well as mutton farming. And I think that's the purpose that it serves. Not forgetting you can shear these for a bit of extra pelt on top, or wool rather. And that's what it does. I think it serves its part in the circle of life, and it doesn't need any improvement in my opinion. Perfection. Thylacoleo, I think another one that's pretty much imperfection. It's undisputed when it comes to bleeding. There is nothing that bleeds better than a Thyla. It's a super duper traveling creature, considering the super jump is still in the game. I'm amazed it's still in the game, but yes, it really is. You can travel at lightning speeds on the back of a Thyla still in ARK Ascended, and yeah, its wall climbing abilities and its bleed make this an absolute go-to choice. A lot of people use these for those reasons alone. I mean, go and fight Lava Golem with one of these and you'll see there's really no reason to change the Thyla. Imperfection it goes. Carbonamimus, probably not how you pronounce one, but you definitely need a little bit of work on these ones. I did actually bring in a tiny TLC that it took its neck inside its shell sometimes, and that's about it. But it still seems like a really fugly creature. I think at the very least, it really needs a visual upgrade. And especially now with the Archelon in the game, it looks even worse now. It's one of, if not the oldest looking creature in ARK that needs desperately some improvement there at the very least. Was once the tank of choice, with you being able to rock up to bases on the back of one of these, one singular turtle, and take on an entire base. No longer is the case. They do serve as great bullet sponges to be thrown en masse, and they are great for some other purposes such as Tuzo taming. Almost feel like it's a bit of a pimp disc now with the Archelon really outranking it, and maybe it's just about there. It desperately needs a visual upgrade. I'm going to throw in pimp disc. I think it needs a bit more than just appearances. And what could that be? I think just to be a bit quicker in the ocean than it currently is. It is far too slow in the ocean. I get on land, I get the reason for that, but in the sea, it moves way too slow. It's incredibly slow. Watching somebody on the back of these trying to get anywhere at all is the most boring thing in the world. Maybe we could do with just bumping that speed improvement just a little bit more. Therazinos, though, I mean, come on, it's the all-rounder. It's a great harvesting creature for anything and everything, for wood, thatch, berries, meat, hide, everything you want to farm. You can do this very well on the back of a Therazino, and of course, it's a boss fighter when it comes to dragon, especially. Throwing some veggie cakes on these and you will murder anything and everything. Let's not forget its different abilities, the ability to bite riders straight off saddles and to inflict surprisingly more torpor than you realize. It's a monster of a creature. It's absolute perfection. Beezel Buffo, another one I think is probably imperfection because its paste farming abilities is insane. On top, a great early starter choice for most people, especially on PvP, because of its ability to move around pretty quick, as well as being able to knock out players pretty quick. I think it serves its purpose alone as a great paste farmer. It doesn't look too fugly. Maybe it's getting there. It's getting there. You know, it might need some work in the future, but for now, I think I can safely put this one in perfection. Bringing in the Scorpion, and yeah, this one definitely needs a bit of work, right? It's just not a go-to creature anymore. It's almost on the verge of useless. Maybe just about in Pimp This. Because, yeah, I guess you can use these for a few things, but do you really use these for anything at all? I don't think you do. Once upon a time, there were torpedealers. People used to use these to knock out Quetzals, let's not forget. But I just don't think you do anymore. I think we've moved way beyond Scorpions in later game Ark now, and perhaps it needs a bit more work. But what more work? Let's see those pincers go to play. Why the hell has it got giant pincers that don't do anything apart from just swipe? Maybe the ability to grab certain things, a bit like a Karkinos, but on a smaller scale. Why not have that ability in there? Let's use these hands for something other than roundhouse punching. And why not double on what I said about the Titanoboa, some ability to create maybe narcotics. But I think simply the ability to grab creatures could make this a go-to. Imagine this being something that you could grab creatures early on to tame with and keep them in its claws, a bit like a Karkinos, once again, would be a great choice. You'd be like, oh, I need to tame X, Y, and Z creature. I'll go and get myself a scorpion to grab said creature to tame it with, whilst inflicting a gradual bit of torpor like a Tuzo. Maybe that's what it needs. I still feel like maybe a few players still use this, but I'm going to throw it in useless. I think it deserves its spot there as needing some work. Sabertooth is a creature that doesn't get used as often as it is. I think it's a bit of an underrated creature. I think it's a great traveling creature all around personally, but I don't feel like enough players use these in the game. I think they skip past this and go to other creatures without a doubt. And whilst its melee is pretty top in my opinion, it needs something. It needs a little bit more pizzazz to make this worthwhile to tame over anything else in Ark. But what is it? Once again, referencing Kraken's Better Dinos, a double jump is a suggested idea for it to be able to do that, and its bite attack to do some piercing damage, bypassing and shredding armor like a manta. And I think a double jump on its own would definitely just push this a little bit more to something worthwhile. And as said, I do think players do use these. I think it did get a TLC update at some point. It just needs a little bit more reason to tame, because I don't think there's just enough reason to tame. Dung beetle serves its purpose in Ark. It makes poop. You want some poop? Give me all the poop you can. I'll turn it into fertilizer. You all tame these exactly for that. It's your fertilizer maker. It really needs no requirements, no change in Ark. Imperfection, it goes. Followed by a Quetzal, and this is one I think definitely needs a new look to it. It's just not a go-to flyer anymore. Whilst it got a speed improvement recently, it just didn't feel like enough. It's definitely not a useless creature, but it just doesn't feel like it's something we go to anymore for anything at all. RGs really do the job for most of those grindy runs. And if failing that, you're probably going to go for a Rhino Nafa instead. So what does it need? I think as well as speed, it just needs some improved mobility in the air. It's just too cumbersome to move around to get anywhere at all with this thing, and I think that's its problem. If it was something that was more accurate at moving around, turning at a bit more of a quicker whim, it could be a more worthwhile creature for those metal farmers. Maybe even a reduced weight with metal, a bit like an RG. Give this just that bigger reason to use for those larger scale metal runs. Of course, you need to still use the ramp build as the old players used to do, and perhaps that's the purpose, that yeah, you still go to an RG for those solo metal runs, but if you wanted to do it in a team with an Anki, that's the way to do it, because the Quetzal's got a metal weight reduction. But definitely just a bit more mobility with these things. I think it needs that, as well as maybe a bit of a visual touch up now, looking a bit older than most as well. Next up is the Pego. I hate them. You all hate them. Kill them with fire. I mean, they serve their purpose in the wild. They steal anything and everything that you want. But do you tame them? Only accidentally, right? I frankly don't see many people taming these and using their stealing abilities for much at all. And maybe that needs to be looking at more so. Is there any way to buff its stealing abilities when tamed? I just never forgot though, they are a gacha crystal collector now, which frankly does actually make them a perfect tame. You know, definitely will be taming these, of course you will. But for that reason alone, gacha crystal collection, it's imperfection. Yeah, a narrow miss for the Pego. Pelagornis though is something that, yeah, is a great poly farmer without a doubt. It farms poly en masse, and definitely people use that for that alone. You can fish from the things, and that's about it. It's a very, very slow flyer. Does it need more than it has currently? I feel like it maybe just about does. I don't feel like it's a perfect creature. It's definitely serving its purpose, but I feel like it needs just a little bit more. Maybe just a bit more improvement in the air. How about some extended spore timers with fish-related products? Fish in particular, like fish meat, would simply be a good use there. Something additional to this to make more of a reason to have them out there as tamed creatures that you want to go to than anything. Like, it's not a terrible creature, but I feel like it needs just a little bit more. So for that alone, we're going to throw it in bet. Onto the Barry now, and come on, it's a good all-around solid creature. I think there's no concern when it comes to the Barry. It's a great cave traveling creature. It's a great land to sea creature. It can stun things on a whim. It's a wonder how the meta might change again with the Helicoprion being a way better stunning creature in the sea now. But this thing is a bit of a beast all round. There's no real reason to change a Barry, and it goes in perfection. Anki again. I mean, you know, metal farming, right? That's it. That's what it does. It metal farms en masse. You can now change it to simply just farm metal for you, and for that reason alone, there's no need to change this thing. It does what it does. Anki's are great choices when it comes to metal farming. Brontos, though, yeah, could do with a bit of a buff, right? You tame these to tame Rhino and Appers, and that's about it, right? Okay, they do berry farm en masse. They're great berry farmers, and they do gather more berries than most, but I just don't think anybody uses them for that. They used to be great tanks. They even recently got a bit of a buff, but I still feel like they're not being used. Not too sure if the Brachiosaurus is planned for ARK, and I feel like it might be considering how many ARK editions we've seen being brought into ARK Ascended so far. But if it's not, let's look at that. Let's look at the abilities that the Brachiosaurus offers, such as a foot stomp, the ability to rear back and come down, hitting the floor with incredible force, offering even more damage from that. That's what I would like to see with the Bronto. That's originally what we suggested way back when with our TLC video 4 years ago. Of course, if the Brachiosaurus is in, then really I don't know what we're going to offer with the Bronto, and in fact the Brachie is going to make the Bronto even less worth taming. But let's make the Bronto a bit more like the Brachio. Yeti or Gigantopithecus. I've got no real complaints with that. I think it's a go-to choice in the moment. It's a bit niche. Like, if you don't tame it at the time that you tame it, you probably won't tame one. But they're great fun things to run about on early on. Great fiber gatherers, great berry gatherers. You can throw a helmet on these things. They look funny. They look a bit fugly, to be honest. They probably need a bit of work there. In fact, they look way better than they used to. My God. But do they need a bit of work? I feel like they do. I feel like they do just need a bit more of an improvement. I don't feel like they are perfection. I feel like they're very niche in the moment, and then you'll breeze right past them. But what's the improvement? Maybe the ability to wield weapons, eh? I don't know. That creates a bit of an imbalance against the Mantis, but like, I thought we was going to get it with the Donopithecus. We never got it. Why can we not have these monkeys wielding assault rifles? It needs to happen in ARK. Like, imagine Bigfoot bombing it. Maybe it can shoot, but it's quite sporadic. Like, it's like frenzy mode and it'll shoot wherever. That would be hilarious. Bigfoot going down, just shooting anywhere and everywhere. I'd love to see it. Can we have that, please? The Trike, I think the Trike serves its place in ARK. It's a great early game creature. It's a great berry farmer. It's a great waste traveling creature early game. And it continues to be a great tank later on for PvP, especially. People still use these for niche moments, for particular scenarios, because its front head definitely reduces that damage. There's no real reason to nerf a Trike. It definitely got some TLC, didn't it? At some point, it got a charge attack. I quite like the thing. I've got no real reason to nerf it or buff it any more than it is. Trike's good. Perfection. Dimorphs. I think Dimorphs serve their place as well en masse. These things shred. It's a shame there used to be a time when people would set up Dimorph Tauric Terrors. We don't do that anymore. Why is that? Nevertheless, I think they still do a lot of damage. And I think that's the point of them. You're meant to have a good group of these to deal damage en masse. And when you do that, you see the damage that they do. You can tame them for that, and they're still worth taming for that. I don't think they need changing. Dimorphs are great. Chalicotherium or Calicotherium, I think it's the latter. Beer Guzzler, throws rocks, and an underrated creature at that. It's definitely a bit of a more of a choice creature over others, but it's definitely a great creature for boss fights. I've seen these things. These are way more powerful than you think. Not forgetting you can put these in turret mode to throw rocks from distance as well. Less people seem to use these more than most, but I think they're up there as one of the best creatures to tame. I've got no complaints over them. Frankly, I'd like to see what you think though in the chat, but for me, no brainer, and it goes. Arkas, oh my god, Arkas are way better than I thought they were. Without a doubt, we've been really enjoying using them quite recently, of course, acting as an infinite parachute ability to get around anywhere and everywhere without falling quickly. And well, turns out if you've got one of these wandering near a sap tap, then they will change the sap tap slot limit to a higher number unofficial, and that can go beyond even that on unofficial depending on what your stack sizes are. For that alone, my word, these are pretty good, man. But the fact is you can farm sap en masse pretty easily elsewhere. Does that need an improvement? I think so. I think it really does need for that sap tap buff production that it does to be buffed just a bit more than it currently is. It's just not quite enough to be any reason, to serve any reason to sit around waiting for this thing to generate sap near a tree. Unless you're built near a tree, then that's different. But honestly, take one of these to the labyrinth and thank me later. Arkas are great. I really love these. I feel like I'm a bit biased in this, but go tame one. You won't regret it. Oviraptor. Well, you know, everyone's got one of these. If you haven't got an Oviraptor in your base, you've got some real issues because this is your egg collector. I love that this serves a real purpose in ASA compared to its ASE counterpart. Didn't really tame them as much in ASE. Now it's an absolute must for your base in ASA. No complaints, straight imperfection, in it goes. Followed by the Spino, which no complaints there. It recently got a buff as well. Haven't really tested to see how well this is being used since its buff, but it was a good boss creature. It still is a great boss creature. Was once a go-to for Brood because of the hydration buff that it gives in there, but the fact is Megatherium is a better choice for the Brood Mother, but it's still a monster for boss fights. And with these recent buffs, I get a feeling like it doesn't need much improvement at all. I'm going to throw that one in perfection. Bringing in the Patchy, a creature that, yeah, it needs a bit of work. Yeah, it deals a bit of torpor. But yeah, no. Do you use Apache for anything? I don't think you do you? Everybody overlooks this. The only people that use these are to prove that they can be used for something, but there's better things for everything that this does. Patchy needs work. I think it needs an overall buff on its stats. I think its headbutt needs to do more than what it does. I think it needs to maybe inflict a bit more torpor than it currently does, and maybe the ability to harvest rocks, seeing that, you know, its headbutt is a hard head and it can harvest stone. Why not that? Have that as an option. I know the Dode does the stone harvesting, but could this be brought in as another stone harvester? At least offer something more than it currently does. It needs something, some reason to tame one, which I don't think it has right now. Can we see a buff? Can we turn this from a useless into a useful? And speaking of useless, is this useless anymore? Well, depending on how you look at this, I'm going to be looking at it with a bit of bias because I'm quite enjoying using these at the moment. But frankly, you only use these to poop en masse. This is why you tame Phiomias. They are simply dino-sized poop servers to feed stimberries in and grant you plenty of poop to throw into a dung beetle. But I don't know whether that's enough anymore because, you know, before you know it, you've got plenty of bases to produce plenty of poop that your dung beetle can automatically pick up now. So you've got no real reason to produce poop en masse anymore. It's a great source for hide if you didn't know, but I feel like it needs just a little bit more. It's not quite useless, but it's close. It's definitely a pimp diss with a very obvious choice, the ability to harvest berries. Why can this thing not harvest berries? It really should. I don't know why. Do it, fix it, bring it in now. It needs to happen. We need berry harvesting, please. Maybe it needs a bit of a touch up in the appearance department on top. PTs! I mean, PTs are PTs. You use a PT, you'll always tame a PT to get in the air and fly around everywhere. They're barrel rolling chiefs. They haven't got great health, of course. Their melee can be a bit boss if you work on that. Their stamina isn't the best and not the greatest, but that's because it's the very first go-to flyer to get any other flyer. Much like the dolphin, I feel it serves exactly the same purpose as that first tame, but in PvP you'll find these used for a lot more other things. Picking with these is a thing you'll be doing a lot of. I've got no real reason to see a change in the PTs, and it goes in perfection. Maybe the ability to walk back, though. I'd like to see that. Patchy Rhino, though, I don't know, man. Like, it's got this ability to attract stuff. I'd love to read the comments and hear about stories using the Patchy Rhino and its attractive abilities, but I don't think you do. I don't think the pheromone really serves for any reason at all. It does offer itself as a tank and, you know, can do what a trike does, but I feel like the pheromone just needs a bit more than what it does. Perhaps the ability to drain or buff stats on creatures or players around it could be enough to be these worthwhile tames now. The pheromone definitely needs to do more than it currently does. I just don't quite know what that is. Seagulls, oh, stop it now. They are an absolute must go to tame, believe it or not. I know, what the hell? Dude's gonna put seagulls in perfection. What are you doing, you lunatic? But I think they really truly are. If you tame these are your go-to choices for making sure you can tame Hesperornis effectively, and in fact otters as well. It's definitely got its place in the command food chain of ARK. It's of course a sheer annoyance when you run into them in the wild, but it does serve a reason to be tamed in ARK. For those two reasons alone, it serves a purpose. So for that alone, I know it's insane, we're going to put this thing in perfection. Done. Followed up by the aloe, and yeah, the pack bleeds. I'm still experimenting with. I'm hoping I'm going to find out a few more things. It's not something I use a lot myself. I'm not really much of an aloe lover, but I know a lot of people out there swear by them, and in packs they do deal a lot of damage. They do bleed on top, let's not forget. They can be a monstrous gang to run into. But that's the point with aloes, that they're meant to be used in a pack. There's not many creatures in ARK that you look upon as being pack creatures. Aloes are definitely one that are meant to be pack creatures. Is it being used effectively enough? Are you meant to be fearing these enough when they are in a pack? And for some reason, I just don't feel like I want to put these in perfection. I actually want to put these in bet. I feel like the aloes need to offer something more. I don't know what it is though. I'm gonna go with bet and face the criticism in the chat. Why not? Tapajara is a flyer for a little accompanied escapade expedition, isn't it? Because it's got a saddle that allows multiple people to sit on it, which is nice for that. It's not a bad speedy flyer. It's perhaps the best picker out of all of the flyers in ARK, and of course has the tech saddle on top, which definitely, at least for PvP, makes this an absolute go-to tame. PvP, perhaps not so much, but I love the appearance of these things. I think you love the appearance of these things. I've got no real complaints on the Tappy. I think they've got their place in ARK, especially with that tech saddle. So yeah, I think it's just about still in perfection. And getting into the last few, now not a lot to go. We've got the Stego. I mean, come on. It's a monster. It's a tank. It's a berry harvester. It's a wood gatherer. It does a lot of great things. It's a monstrous tank out there in PvP. You've got a lot of uses for these. There's no real need to change these. And in fact, was a TLC choice upon a time. One of the last TLC choices, I think. The Stego needs no improvement, in my opinion. Imperfection it goes. Followed by the Sarco, and yeah, Sarco's got an issue, and that is, of course, its bigger cousin, the Dinosuchus. Makes this thing just an unnecessary tame now. Why on earth would you bother taming a Sarco when there's a bigger, uglier, more powerful cousin out there in the wild? That's its problem now. I guess it at the very least serves as offering you Sarco skins, but I just don't think it's going to be a go-to tame anymore. It needs something. It needs some bigger reason to be tamed now. What that is, I don't know. I don't feel like it's a terrible creature. It's still a great creature to tame, but there's just no reason to tame it over a Dinosuchus, and that's its problem now. But I don't know what that is. This is the problem with bringing in newer creatures whilst they're welcomed, and I think it's great, and I think we need new creatures in ARK. Keeps the game fresh. This is what's going to happen to old creatures, and this is why they need TLC. So in fact, maybe it does need TLC. Maybe the Sarco is useless because of the Dinosuchus and does need the TLC. That's an interesting thought. But what is the TLC? How about the ability to sharpen knives? Think Crocodile Dundee. Think swords, pikes, anything sharp pointy tools you can sharpen on a Sarco. When you're riding them, or when when you're riding them with perhaps a timer when you jump off these, it temporarily buffs the melee damage on your sharp tools that you sharpen on a Sarko's tooth. But I kind of like the Crocodile Dundee reference, you know, this is a knife. Tuzo's got its place. There's really no need, in my opinion, to change a Tuzo. It's a monster in the game. It tanks incredibly well. It grabs a lot. In fact, in PvP, it was my go-to to tame every single creature. Not no more than the Helicoprion is in the game. But I quite enjoy traveling on these things. I think it moves at a pretty rapid rate. It's got its place in ARK. People tame these in ARK. Does it need a change? In my opinion, not really. Raptors! Nah. Yeah. One little change. And I know you're going to hate this one. That, why, oh why, did they take out the ability for wild raptors to pounce on you? Wild raptors no longer pounce. It was a thing that we had in ARK. It got taken out, and I don't know why. And I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but I think that's what they should do. Why are they not doing that anymore? I know it serves to be a pain, but make raptors more feared in the wild. They are no longer a feared creature anymore. They just simply aren't. Especially alphas. What the hell? Why am I not scared of alpha raptors? I should be, and I should be with these. So I think it deserves an improvement, and that's where it lies. But simply in wild. But it's just a marginal thing. It's reverting a decision, in my opinion. Bet. Bringing us to Micro Raptor, and I mean, ugh. Ugh. Yeah. I don't like these things. I'm not a fan of Microraptors. There are people that use these in PvP, and that's about it. PvE, you're probably not going to use these. You will encounter these most definitely in the wild, knocking you off your mounts, and that's about it, really. But the question is, do they need TLC? Do they serve their purpose in ARK? Maybe. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't feel like there's any need to tame them, though, in PvE, and that's the problem. Right there. I think the obvious thing that they used to do, apparently, but they definitely don't do anymore, is in taming one, prevents you being dismounted by a Microraptor. And whilst, yeah, there's cats and such now that can scare away Microraptors, why not at least bring that ability back? The ability to not be Microraptored if you've got a Microraptor. Can we not have that back? I think that at least is allowed, surely. Let's put it back in. Bet. Leaving us with Hesperornis, Golden Egg Farmer, and that's what it's there for. It simply is. You now have to tame these if you want to effectively tame Rhinonaphas, so you need to tame these for that reason alone. It serves its purpose in the world of ARK to lay golden eggs that are a very unique egg, offering you XP buffs as well as making extraordinary kibble, or being that requirement for Rhinonapha taming. So I know, nightmare, but it's perfection. Woolly Rhino, yeah, got no disputes over this one. A monster out there. A lot of people swear by these, especially in PvP, for doing bosses, especially for dealing whopping damage. And they're great creatures. They can do some serious damage if sprinting. I've got no real complaints over these, over rhinos. They're great. They look nice enough. Maybe a bit fugly. They could maybe do with a bit of work. You know what? Yeah. Let's see a visual. Let's see the rhinos look a bit more meaner. You know what I mean? Just a bit more. I want my rhinos to look like powerful, monstrous beasts, not friendly, cuddly toys. Fugly. I'm going to give you another fugly. Terror Bird, which I think serves its purpose. I think its flappy happy mobility has its moments in ARK. It is a bit niche, but it's definitely in drips and drabs in ARK. I'm not too bothered about Terror Bird getting a change. I think it's just one of those things that you wander into the wild and you get annoyed by, and you can tame to get around on if you really want to, but my word, does it look rough around the edges. Can we please improve the look of these things? Fugly. Bringing in this thing, Dirt Mode, True Done. Who tames these? No one. Who wants these? No one. No need to tame these. There's really not. They're an absolute nightmare to tame. For what? To search traps, to knock out the odd player that runs into the room without the right stuff to kill True Duns. isn't enough. I feel like the Troodon needs more. It's not completely useless, but I feel like it definitely needs more. Troodon needs more reason to be tamed. It's so much effort to tame one. It needs more purpose. What about the ability to heal you whilst you're sleeping if you've got one tamed near you? Like giving you like Sleepy Man vibes and refilling your health like a tech bed does. But when you haven't got a tech bed, you can use a Troodon instead. Poetry. Or whatever you're going to say in the comments below, right? Bringing us on to the Titanosaur, which I gotta say, I think definitely needs some work. I think the Titanosaur is far too weak a creature, believe it or not. Yes, it does a lot of damage, but these things melt to turrets. They really do. Anybody who's prepared for a defense against Titanos knows that these get melted super duper quick, way too fast, that they just aren't a feared creature anymore in PvP. They need a buff. They need an improvement. They need to be definitely a bit stronger out there in the wild. Maybe even a visual upgrade. I just don't think we are that worried about them anymore, Titanos. Could it simply be maybe just an improved saddle? But then again, is that going to discourage players from building it in the open even more? Because cave meta's already as bad as it currently is. I don't know, I do feel like Titanos aren't nearly as strong and as worth the effort as they really are in ARK. And maybe just a slight buff, a slight improvement to them could be what is possibly needed. Which leaves us on to, not the running enough, I don't know why I had that in the list, that's going to go in perfection, is definitely the most controversial one in this list, the Giga. Which I know a lot of people are going to put up here in the top ones. I mean, obviously a Giga isn't useless, right? But the fact is the Car has made the Giga definitely an overlooked creature now. The Car is the go-to of the two monstrous kings of the dinosaurs now in ARK. The fact is the model of a Giga is awful and it does definitely need an improvement. But what that improvement is, not too sure. I think a great example most definitely is, of course, the Paleo Evo Giga from Depths and his team. It's an absolutely exquisite version of the Giga that looks so much better than what we've got currently in the base game. Of course, as I said earlier, the problem is we'll never see that Paleo Evo Giga in ARK because of Depths and his teams, and I respect their decisions with not them wanting those dino models within the dev kit. But can we at least find some way to get closer to what that thing does? That's what's needed. The thing is a monster. Not just its gorgeous visuals, but its new rage mode. I kind of like the idea of that. Might need to be balanced quite somewhat for base game ARK, but it's just a real great version of the Giga that I would love to see some of that influencing a new version of the Giga in ARK. I know it's still a monster, and we've got to be very careful with how we balance a Giga because it could definitely tip the scales. That is one strong creature as it currently stands already. But it needs something. It looks old. It needs an improvement. And I know, being a top tier creature, you've got to be very careful with how you change one. But the Giga most definitely needs something. I just think there's more useless creatures in ARK that need even more of a TLC than others. But either way, I really look forward to seeing what you guys all choose. Please don't use my list here as a moment of reference, as a point of reference. This is just my opinion and what I believe needs to be changed, what I think needs to be TLC'd in ARK. But I want to see your opinions. Your opinions is what counts, and your opinions is what's going to reflect in this charity live stream, which does all go to charity, by the way. I saw a few comments saying otherwise. But yeah, let's see what happens. Money going to a good cause to create new TLCs for dinos that we're going to find out over the coming months. So until the next one, my name's Raasclark. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. But as always, peace out.